Hey, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about pentatonics and the best ways to practice them. I get so many questions about how do I practice pentatonics? How do I get outside of just going up and down the scale? How do I best practice and apply these things that I'm practicing to my playing? So not to worry, we're going to go over all of those things. We're going to look at just the C minor pentatonic scale over a C minor 7 chord change. I'm going to go over multiple different ways of how to best practice, including different note groupings, 3, 4, and even 5 note groupings, finding triads and stacked fourths within the pentatonic scale that you can use in your improv, and using them all over left-hand voicings, all using different kinds of note values, different rest placement, and rhythmic displacement, which will really help break up your lines and get out of just running up and down a scale non-stop. All of these things that we're going to go over will work on multiple different things at once, including your independence of the hands, how to think more musically about using pentatonic scales, especially using concepts like motifs and motivic development, and also rhythmic concepts. All right, let's dive in. All right, so the first thing is practicing in groups of 3 or 3-note groupings. So for example, I use the same fingering, just going up each individual note of the scale, and then switching from the first group of 3 notes to the next group of 3 notes like this. If I'm going up the pentatonic, that would sound like this. You can do that with 8th note triplets. That would sound like this. Next would be 4-note groupings. So you're doing the same thing, you're just doing it in 8th notes, but 4 notes of the scale instead of 3. Now that is sort of like what every guitar player does. It's what I call like the guitar trick or the guitar pentatonic kind of hack. So the way to kind of separate yourself from that is to not just do it in patterns like this. Like it's very easy to just shred the line like so. Like that. Like nobody wants to really listen to that, you know? Okay, so now that we've covered getting those techniques into your fingers, let's talk about some ways to get them into your playing that are more improvisational and spontaneous. A lot of that is going to be displacing the rhythms and using rests. It will give a lot more interest and intrigue to your lines and for the listener. What you can do is just break it up, whether it's like an 8th note or 16th note line, but you just break it up rhythmically, like so. So the next is broken thirds. So you're skipping one note and then coming back to it. Same thing, you can break this up a little bit more by displacing the rhythm or trying to change the rhythm a bit more in a more musical way. And what's really going to make that work if you just do it at like a normal, like a straight line of 8th notes like this, is if you accent different beats. You can do it in 8th notes, 8th note triplets, and 16th notes. So those are some of the more basic approaches. But the next one is just doing certain patterns of the same 4-note groupings. For example, skipping one and coming back to the second note that you skipped. So you play the first, the third note, and the fourth, and then you play the second note like this. The next would be 5-note groupings. And usually that's going to be what's in a 4-note grouping, but you repeat one of the notes one extra time. So that would sound like this, for example. So there was some rest in there to make it even, but you can do it in succession, so it gives a nice rhythmic offset. And you can mix up the pattern. It doesn't have to really all be the same. I might recommend practicing that at first just to try it. Next would be a 7-note grouping. 7 notes, like so. Here's another cool thing with pentatonic scales, or at least minor pentatonics, is there's 3 sets of stacked fourths and there's 2 triads. Play some voicings with this and also use these in your lines. For the 5 notes of the pentatonic of C minor, you have these stacked fourths and triads. So you can use these in your lines the same way. You can try them in triplets, like so. All right, so here's how to practice them with some left-hand voicings. So I'll go through a couple of those. So some common rhythms you can try are the and a 2 and a 4. For example, that's just short hits. I'll just take a shell voicing. From there, I would just recommend trying a lot of different things out over just some kind of left-hand chord pattern or comping pattern, and just being a little more motivic with your pentatonics, meaning just making short little musical phrases and developing them using some repetition, repeating them or reinstating them in some way, like so. So I'm usually using a lot of repetition or some kind of variation where it's the same rhythm but different notes. As always, if you liked the video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, all of that jazz. And check out the free guides below in the description. There's a guide on where to start if you're new to jazz piano. There's a practice structuring guide if you're overwhelmed or frustrated and don't know what to practice or how to organize it. And my modes cheat sheet, which covers all the modes of major and melodic minor. All for free in the description below. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next video.